We will go over. Just for the edification of the audience, it will be placed on our Facebook page after the presentation and also on our web page. Because of the cost of printing, we traditionally didn't print any more than we need. I'll wait to get caught up. While we're Deputy Chief Austin here, he is the Deputy Chief of the Police Department. I have Captain Jackson, Patrol Division. Captain Evans, Support Services. Captain Raven, Investigative Services Division, and OCD, she's responsible for that. Does everybody have one? Yes. We can turn to page 8. There is some other pages obviously before that. That's myself and Deputy Chief Mayo and some other information. We'll push over to page 8, which shows a cumulative crime data total from 2011 to 2017. I'm sorry, page 5. Page 5. We had a 25% reduction in crime cumulatively over from 2011 to 2017. If you look over to page 6, you can actually see the crime data categorized by Part 1 crimes. And Part 1 crimes is crimes that are recorded in the Uniform Crime Reporting, which is produced by the FBI and sent out nationally to rank communities across our country. Overall, we had a 2.63% increase in crime in 2017 as opposed to 2016. We've talked about crime and crime data for the last 7 years, and every year I remind us that at some point we will never continue to always go down. It's mathematically impossible to continue to have a decrease. Our increase this year is primarily responsible because of the number of auto B&Es, auto breaking and entering. We had a huge influx in the last quarter of this year. You will hear about a public information education campaign a little bit later in the presentation that we've been working on for several years, Lock It When You Leave. In the high 90th percentile of auto B&Es in our city are unlocked vehicles. A majority of weapons that are stolen in our city are removed from unlocked vehicles. This is a crime of opportunity, if you will, and in some respects, we could help ourselves on the preventative side by simply locking our car and moving our valuables. We did have an increase in our homicide number from the previous year of 66.67%. Those 5 homicides resulted from, in every case with the exception of one, some domestic related event or event of known associates, with the exception of one. The one we had on Manning Avenue at the store was as a result of attempted armed robbery. So again, person-on-person crimes, particularly for law enforcement, in most respects, are very difficult to predict. Crimes against person are very difficult to predict. We can, with some degree of certainty, predict property crimes over the course of years by studying our data, and we continue to do that. But unfortunately, we had a small increase, and again, primarily attributable to the auto B&Es across our city. One interesting note is, again, our custodial arrest. You see arrests made is 1,116. That is 10.86% below last year. So even though we continue to have some issues in certain areas, I think it speaks to the positive reinforcement we're doing within the city with the police department on education, on attempting to improve the quality of life, while at the same time, as much as we can improve the quality of life, create goodwill at every opportunity we have. Through our education process, public information education, those dividends are paying off relative to the number of arrests. On page 7 is a photo of the groundbreaking of the new building. The new building is on Lafayette, north of Calhoun Street. Not only is that the new home of the police department, that is also the new home of the 911 center for the city and the county. We're responsible for all 911 services for all first responders. That's police, sheriff, fire, and EMS. That is in the umbrella, under the umbrella of the police department. Because of the voters did react in a positive way on the campaign of the last penny, we were able to glean a little over $10 million to upgrade our network. Our network was being forced to be upgraded by the industry. We were on an analog system. Our entire network needed to be reconfigured to a digital platform, which required additional towers, upgraded radio systems for the entire fleet of all first responders, as well as a telecommunications center. So while viewing that and looking at future expenses for the city and the county, it became very apparent that although we would still be required to purchase the infrastructure of the city, that being the radios and the materials needed to operate the radios, would still need to be purchased. It became very clear that the way of the future was us to partner with Palmetto 800 megahertz, which is a digital platform with 800 megahertz system, primarily owned and operated by the state of South Carolina. And it's much like the co-op systems many years ago, Farmers Telephone, Black River Co-op, where the user group as a whole supports the infrastructure. To give you just a quick example, we pay about $450,000 a year annually to be able to talk on the radio. And that's much like you would have a cell phone contract on a user group, but each one of our subscribers, which is a radio, but we have up to 2,500 subscribers in our network for everybody across the city and county, for a total of about $450,000. Had we not chosen to migrate to the lease of the infrastructure side of the industry, our cost alone just on the annual maintenance would have been $700,000. We were able to negotiate this contract and this fee for 10 years. So just looking at the 10-year period from the lease to the purchase saved us about $3.5 million. And the 800 megahertz radio spectrum is no different in some respects to cell phones. The industry will change, the technology will change, and if we continue to own the entire infrastructure and the operating system, I believe in the years to come we would be unable to, as a city and a county, to come to the table with that much money to continue the upgrades. It's that expensive. So we made a wise decision, in my view, with much guidance from many people. It's proven to be invaluable. Our footprint is expanded. We have interoperability with other cities, counties, and state agencies and federal partners, and law enforcement, particularly when we have an event of a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. We're able to communicate by being on the state spectrum. So it was a great opportunity for us as a city and as a county to move in that direction. If you look at the next page, which is page 8, top is the solar eclipse. That's a great example of all city services and county services working in concert for about 15,000 people that visited us for an event that lasted about 90 seconds. We had 15,000 people in Dillon Park and Swan Lake that drove from as far as Boston to come to view the eclipse. We received many letters afterwards about how it was ran, not just by the police department, but involving the sheriff's department and other city services. how easy it was to ingress and egress from the location. I think again, and I'm being repetitive, but I think it's a great opportunity to showcase the partnerships that we have, both internal and external across the city. Just below that is a young lady named Elizabeth Burns. Ms. Burns, I believe, is 93 years old. Detective Matthew Yates met Mrs. Burns a couple of years ago while responding to a call that someone had a snake in their yard. And he developed a relationship with her. And he discovered that her husband was one of the first African-American police officers in the city of Sumter. He was employed in 1952. And one evening, on a Saturday night in 1953, while playing with his daughter for what he didn't know was his last time, had a heart attack. He was preparing to go to work the county fair, and died suddenly in 1953. We were not aware of Mr. Burns, had no record going back that far, but because of Detective Yates, again, quality of life, goodwill opportunity, developed a relationship with Mrs. Burns and her family. You see on the bottom, her family came up. Well, we were able to find the photograph that she had and presented that to her at the police department. Some months after the initial visit, without being instructed, a group of our officers went to her home and did some work outside, painted her home, helped her, and we've developed a new friend that we continue to interact with. Our next page is our liaison group, many of which are here this evening. We meet quarterly. I just had a meeting last week and received input, guidance, concerns across the community. As you can see, we have someone from almost every discipline in our community. We value their relationship, their candor. We're able to provide them information and arm them with information that they're able to help us further get out our message and our concern about quality of life issues and the service for which we provide in our community. On the bottom of that page is notice that our CALEA, our Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement, we're up for reaccreditation again this year for our 8th time. We'll have 2 days, the last week in February, that assessors will be here. Sort of changed it up a little bit now, where most of our files were presented into electronically. And this will be an on-site visit for us in order for us to get reaccredited. And as we get closer, we'll push out more information about call-in numbers for the citizens. Also, we'll meet with council, the mayor, as well as the city manager, based on what they glean from our inspection. On page 10, we talk a lot about auto B&Es. We talk about that driving our numbers up. And again, Lock It Before You Leave It is a campaign that we've concentrated on heavily on public information and education over the last 4 years. These are officers that were actually in neighborhoods. We provided them with a mirror hanger to remind them, particularly in neighborhoods and other areas, to lock your vehicle when you leave, even in your own driveway. So we continue to push that. I've looked at the numbers from this month. We have our action meeting this week. We'll see what successes we've met with so far. But from reading the reports that I read over the course of the new year, hopefully we're making some traction in that area. The bottom is an outreach that we partnered with the South Carolina Highway Patrol during Hurricane Irma. We were spared greatly considering we had a flood, 3 years ago, and Hurricane Matthew 2 years ago. And there was a lot of people from Florida that were displaced. As you can imagine, I-95 was very heavily traveled. And we have a rest area in Sumter County at the 139 mile mark. So we reached out to the Highway Patrol and got some water and just went out to the rest area with them and gave water to people that were going home. That was more than just passing out a bottle of water. It was an opportunity for people all across the eastern seaboard to learn about Sumter and learn about Sumter as a caring community. But it also offered an opportunity for some of those folks just to have an ear. We met a gentleman that was going to Charleston to help his son on some damage he had from his home, a son that he had never met. We learned just a few weeks before that he had actually had a son from a previous marriage, and because of some of the issues in the divorce, he never realized he had. The children that we interacted with, many of them going back to Florida with no home, no possessions, but just to take that few minutes to provide the human side of a police officer with someone in a time of need was therapeutic for us, as well as for the persons that we interact with. Our next is a Uniform Services Division, which starts on page 11. That is Captain Jackson's responsibility, and I won't go over all the numbers on page 12, but I will tell you that what our people in our community see and how they interact with law enforcement is how we act and present ourselves in uniform. In most cases, most people in our city never interact with law enforcement or the police department beyond the patrol officer level. So we talk to our officers a lot about our presentation, our appearance, how we're interacting with people. One of the things that we talk in great detail about is developing a skill called empathy. And we talk a lot about, we find ourselves as humans involved in situations sometimes out of our control and oftentimes beyond our control. But to empathize with the individual, listen to the person, and do the very best we can to assist them. As I told you earlier, our custodial arrests are down 10.86%. We do not measure success in our agency by the number of people that we incarcerate. We measure our success by continuing to attempt to improve the quality of life and in any opportunity to create goodwill. There's many things, and I would invite the members of our audience, and I know the council and the mayor are familiar with our Facebook page, but there's many examples on our Facebook page of positive interaction. That is what we're continuing to strive. When someone is involved in what could be considered as a minor traffic accident, depending on the age of the person involved, or even if it's a younger person that's never had any issues in the vehicle or never interacted with law enforcement, that's very important to that person. As routine or mundane that others may see it, that takes a huge impact and a huge toll on the individual. So we place a lot of emphasis on dealing with people in a positive way. With that, on page 13, you'll see K9 Diva says goodbye. One of our K9s will live beyond what would be considered to be able to continue to operate in a high stress capacity for a K9. So she was retired and turned over to the owner. We hired another K9. But on page 13 on the bottom is another example of Jamie Solomon, who was now an officer, at that time was an animal control officer, pulled the culvert off of a drain and got inside of it and got a kitten out for this guy in the photo that you see. Another example of service beyond self. Some of our strategies on the traffic division side is being demonstrated on page 14. We started about 5 years ago having called ghost striping, which essentially the striping or the decaling on the car has a reflective material that is the same color as the car. And that assists us in a couple of ways, particularly on the traffic side, to be able to work without immediate notice as you would have in a marked car. However, at night, when headlights pan the side of the car, the reflective material reflects, highlights so you can easily see it's a police car. It's just a tool and technique we developed after doing some studying about 5 years ago, and it's proved to be very successful. On the bottom of the page, you'll see traffic division and two gentlemen about Quicket Solutions. We entered an agreement with Quicket Solutions for electronic ticketing. Actually, in 2015, the General Assembly passed a law because of the federal motor carrier monies that we had to do as an agency or as law enforcement was required to do electronic ticketing. Unfortunately, the funding associated itself with that legislation. And we were given a reprieve for 2 years, and we were able to enter into an agreement with Quicket and deploy electronic ticketing through our agency. So that was a great successful thing we were able to do. On page 18 is Investigative Services Division. There's clearances on the bottom of the page based on the crimes. The photo you see in the middle is a citizen that was involved with assisting us in passing out flyers that she volunteered to do so. This was from the homicide involving Mr. Patel at his Manning Avenue location in November. We had great support from the community. Mr. Patel was well liked in his community, well liked in the neighborhood, and through assistance from Crime Stoppers and the media and us deploying social media platforms, and as importantly, the community at large helped us bring that to a positive resolution quickly, within about 2 days of actually pushing the information out. The next page, which is page 17, is our youth corps. That is, I think, the 26th year of youth corps, which is funded by a community development grant. We had more kids involved this year than previously. We had about 40. We had assigned an extra officer. And these are kids 14 to 15 years of age that we bring in through the grant and provide employment and structure throughout the city. They do work such as clean up parks, mow grass. We found they've helped us in some of our elderly areas where we've had some people that had an inability to sort of take care of the yard to help us with that. But it really teaches the kids some soft skills. The skills that's necessary to learn. It's important to be on time. Taught them to interact with people that they may not ordinarily go to school with, associate with, live close by, have a relationship with. And it provided us an opportunity to interact in a positive way from law enforcement back to the community. The 3 officers you see in the photograph are all school resource officers. One in the middle schools and the other 2 in the high school. So that further develops that relationship between the law enforcement community and our children. And it also afforded them an opportunity, them being the children, to go on some trips that they may not ordinarily be able to go to. By visiting Shaw Air Force Base, a Honda manufacturing plant, the Riverbank Zoo, and to the coastline. So we look forward to doing this every year. The kids are really excited. They work real hard, do a great service, and it's a great return on the investment for the community. The next page is some information from the Investigative Support Services activity. Our victims advocates. They're very busy. But more than we think in terms of only dealing with victims of crime because the mere definition of victims advocates. We have 3 ladies assigned in that area that are very committed. And they, every day, are assisting people that find their way to our office on many issues that has nothing to do with crimes or crime victims. Anything that you can imagine, they've been able to assist people and get them plugged into the right resources to assist whatever they need. They're very dedicated and they do a fantastic job. One of the examples is the Mothers of Murdered Children has a parade every year, or a march, followed by some speaker bureau that comes out and talks about the tragedy of losing a child. They're heavily involved in that. The next page is primarily what our drug unit does, OCVC, Organized Crime and Vice Control. You'll see some numbers on the bottom on some seized weapons, street value seized drugs, seized cash. So, the next page is on page 20. This is something that Captain Raven is talked in detail about, doing more investigation in computer crimes, arming ourselves with better information. Our Special Investigation Unit, primary responsibility and area of expertise is the digital analyzation of cell phone data, developing source information using digital platforms, using social media platforms in investigations, missing persons, high-risk warrant service, and assisting the U.S. Marshal Service. So I was talking with someone the other day about how law enforcement has to evolve. And we have to arm ourselves with the appropriate tools to address the issues that we're faced with today. The internet has brought a lot of knowledge to a lot of people. The internet has saved us all a lot of time. The internet has created a lot of opportunity for theft. Cell phones has created a lot of opportunity for theft. So to have this unit started and armed with the appropriate tools and resources necessary for us to eradicate and investigate that type of crime will pay us dividends in the future. Also, our forensic unit, we deal a lot with children. We just had Shadow Day recently, and working with the forensic detectives is always a big hit with the kids, because they watch TV and see everything happen before the next commercial break. So they actually learn the realities of life and all the things that we deal with in the time frame for which it takes to make it happen. Page 21 is the Support Services Division. Captain Evans is responsible for procurement. If you remember last year, we talked a lot about body-worn cameras. There's other monies available in the grant that we met about today to talk about future data storage, getting assistance from the state on that side. He's also responsible for employment. Staff Sergeant Tashika Gale is our recruiter. She does recruiting both for the agency and law enforcement, and also in the area of telecommunications. Also under his umbrella is training, and if you look on page 22, you'll see all the training that we do annually with our officers. We place a premium on training. We look at our crime trends. We look at even ourselves of what type of accidents we find ourselves involved in, and do our training based off the trends. We will continue to do that. We have core courses, obviously, that we require to in the Criminal Justice Academy, but we look much beyond that in the development of training. Page 23 begins the Community Services Division, and this is one of the most important things that we can do in any community. We started this road about 6 years ago with one full-time person and one part-time person, and we call it crime prevention. But community services is much more than just crime prevention. We're heavily involved in neighborhood watch, community meetings, speaking engagements. That's under the guidance of Staff Sergeant Sinkler. One thing that he does is think it's twice a month. We go to Shaw Air Force Base. They have a program for all their new enlisted, and the Army's involved now, and their officers called Right Star. And that gives us an opportunity to talk about the city of Sumter and talk about our community. You can look on the internet, and depending on the purpose crime data is being used, the numbers can be skewed in certain ways. So we provide clarity. He answers questions, but that's beginning a relationship development between himself and the members of the community that's coming in from the military. And it's proven to be successful, particularly in those individuals that may have an issue and not know a lot of people in the community. That's proven to be very helpful. One thing that we're extremely proud of is Operation Checkmate. I'm sure you all have seen, we have one black and white Tahoe, and that's Papa G, Corporal Davis. And we have a black and white Tahoe called the Checkmate, checkers, the marketing, the branding, the catchy eye of the vehicle. He has 41 customers, really 41 additional family members, because he treats each one of our Checkmate participants as family members. He made 1,344 home visits last year. That doesn't count the times he went to the drugstore, the grocery store, went home and changed clothes and came back and helped him to do things. He has got a big heart and an emotional investment in our seniors. You know, the last time I looked at our numbers, based on our population density, our seniors were about 16% of our population in the city. So our numbers continue to grow, and he's doing a fantastic job on that. We did 70 media releases, 35 videos. One thing that is very telling for us is we had a 13.2% increase on social media. I told you last year Deputy Chief Holston was on the forefront of this drive several years ago, and social media is important when used the right way. It provides us a platform to get information out in real time. As simple as the traffic lights are out because of a power failure, we can push that information out right away. Weather-related information about issues we're facing, particularly like when you leave in crime in neighborhoods. It's free. We have about over 17,000 persons that like us. I like to say we have almost 17,000 followers, and it's proven to be a great tool and resource. Our telecommunications, you can see the numbers of calls for service and changes in that area. If you look at that bottom page, we've entered into an agreement with Farmers Telephone that we can use their facility in the event it would be required for us to vacate the location the main 911 center is in the result, in the event of a fire, disaster. If all fails on the power, they have redundant power, and they are a great community partner. We have everything set up, and that gives us a place to evacuate to and continue 911 should that become an issue. That was a great opportunity. Again, we are responsible for the police department, the sheriff's department, the EMS, and the fire department. Anybody that dials 911. The number of phone calls we answer is about 300,000 a year in that center. It's a busy place. Those folks do a great job. So report recap is 25% decrease in crime over the last 7 years. We did have a slight increase over last year. We recognize that. We somewhat predicted that internally was going to happen, and we began the strategies to address it. We'll continue to develop strategies based on the trends. Monthly, we have an action meeting whereby we catalog our calls for service, our incidents, and provide those out to our watch commanders and hold them responsible to address those issues. Our analyst provides 3 hotspot maps a week for briefing so that we can look at our data. and work in those areas we have a problem. We still believe in the 3 E's, which is evaluate, educate, and enforce, and work in the areas that we have issues. We strongly believe in community partnerships, being transparent with our information, and providing as much information we can to the community through social media and the traditional media to solicit the assistance of our community to continue to improve our quality of life. I'll be happy, Mr. Mayor, to answer any questions you all may have.
Council have questions?